All right, let's just dive right in. Have you ever wondered why just scrolling through social media can leave you feeling, well, kind of anxious? Today we're going to dig into that feeling, but we're going to trace it way back. Like all the way back to our earliest ancestors. Because, understanding the why behind it all, that's really the first step to getting a handle on it. And we're kicking things off with a feeling that I think we all know a little too well. The ache of appearance. Or, as our slide so cleverly puts it, appearance. Yeah, this is all about that constant, nagging urge to compare ourselves to everybody else. So, let's be real for a second. Do you ever get that feeling that you're just falling behind? Maybe you see a colleague's big promotion on LinkedIn, or a friend's picture-perfect vacation pops up on your feed. Or maybe it's just this vague sense that everyone else has their life figured out and you don't. It's such a common feeling, and it actually has a name. And that name is status anxiety. The philosopher Alain de Botton really nailed it when he defined it as this fear that we're not living up to society's idea of success. And this isn't just, simple jealousy. It's this much deeper feeling of being stuck, which, and this is important, research directly connects to things like shame and really poor mental health. And this anxiety, man, it plays out in some really modern and sometimes ugly ways. Just take this quote here from DJ Sarah Landry. She's talking about those keyboard warriors who complain when they see women having fun. It's a really sharp observation, right? But it perfectly shows status anxiety in action. The internet has become this new arena for status battles, where some people feel like their own place in the world is somehow threatened by someone else's success, or hey, even just by someone else's joy. Okay, so that's the what. We know what status anxiety is. But the big question is, why do we feel this way? So for our next section, let's get into the programming, our brain's ancient programming. This slide just lays out the problem so perfectly. Look, on the left, we've got the stuff our brains evolved over millennia to be scared of. Poisonous snakes, spiders, predators, real, immediate, physical threats. But then, look at the right. Our modern threats? A nasty email from your boss, a shocking headline on the news. These are things our ancestors couldn't even have dreamed of. Our ancient fear response system just hasn't had time to catch up, and that creates this huge fundamental mismatch. So this whole idea comes from a field called evolutionary psychology. And the core theory, as you can see, is pretty straightforward. Our brains today, the way we think, feel, and act, have been shaped by the survival challenges our ancestors faced. Basically, whatever solutions helped them survive and have kids, well, those solutions got hardwired into our brains as instincts. And this right here is probably the best way to think about it. It's like we're all running Stone Age software on a digital age computer. Our basic operating system is built for a world that just doesn't exist anymore. And that glitch, that mismatch, is a massive source of our modern-day anxiety. But survival wasn't just about fighting off saber-toothed tigers. It was also about getting along. And this brings us to a really fascinating twist in the whole story. The survival of the kindest. It's all about the evolutionary advantage of cooperation. Which brings up a great question, right? If evolution is all survival of the fittest, this brutal dog-eat-dog competition, then why do we help each other? Why are people often so kind, even when it costs something? That old survival of the fittest line just doesn't tell the whole story. Okay, so the first piece of the puzzle is something called kin selection. It's basically an evolutionary strategy where we're wired to help out our relatives. And why? Well, because they share our genes. So helping them succeed is kind of an indirect way of making sure our own genetic code gets passed on. Okay, stick with me here because this is super cool. There's actually math that explains this, and it's called Hamilton's rule. The formula looks a little intense, but it's simple. R times B has to be greater than C. So R is how related you are, B is the benefit to the other person, and C is the cost to you. The wolf pack example on the slide just makes it so clear. An wolf is about 25% related to her sister's pups. The benefit, the B, is that 5 pups get to eat and survive. The cost, the C, is that she misses 1 meal. So you do the math. 0.25 times 5 is 1.25. And since 1.25 is greater than 1, the sacrifice is a total win from a genetic standpoint. See? It's not just about being nice, it's cold, hard evolutionary logic. But okay, what about helping total strangers? Our family, that makes sense, but why help someone we're not related to? That's where this idea of indirect reciprocity comes in. The idea is you help someone not because you expect that person to pay you back directly, but because you know other people are watching. When you build a reputation for being a helpful, cooperative person, it massively increases the chances that someone else, a third party, will help you out later on. It's all about playing the long game when you live in a social world. So here we are. We've got this ancient brain, it's wired for status, it's wired for cooperation, and it's feeling totally overwhelmed and anxious in our modern world. So the big question is, what can we actually do about it? Well, let's talk about one really powerful tool. Let's talk about hacking your anxious brain with the power of ritual. Now, when I say ritual, I don't just mean like a habit or a routine. As the definition here explains, a ritual is a predefined sequence of symbolic actions. It's formal, it's repetitive, and here's the key part. It doesn't necessarily have a direct practical purpose. The real power is in the symbolism and the structure it provides.
And if you think this is just some weird psychological quirk, check this out. Look at these absolute titans in their fields. Beyoncé has a very specific pre-show sequence. Serena Williams has her exact number of ball bounces. Baseball Hall of Famer Wade Boggs ate chicken before every single game. These aren't just random superstitions, they are finely tuned tools these people use to manage unbelievable amounts of pressure.
So, how in the world does this actually work?
Well, researchers have found it's a really simple but powerful chain reaction. First, you perform the ritual. Now, remember that Stone Age software we were talking about? The one that's freaking out because the world is so unpredictable? Well, a ritual creates a moment of perfect predictability and control. It's like you're telling that ancient part of your brain, hey, in this moment, I'm in charge. I know exactly what happens next. And that directly calms down those anxiety circuits. And what happens when you have less anxiety? Your brain is freed up to focus and perform at its best. It is a direct psychological hack that speaks our brain's ancient native language.
Okay, so let's pull all these threads together. Let's land on a new perspective here. Understanding our modern human selves by looking at our ancient minds. This quote really is the big takeaway from our whole discussion. Our social lives today are this constant, tricky negotiation. On one side, you have these deep, ancient instincts pushing you to gain status and cooperate with your tribe. But on the other, you have the crazy pressures of our modern world. Social media, 24/7 news, digital everything, an environment our brains were just never, ever built for. And that brings us to the final thought I want to leave you with. Look, understanding all this isn't just some interesting science fact. It's basically a user manual for your own brain. So my question to you is this. Now that you know the ancient rules that are pulling the strings behind the scenes, how are you going to choose to play the modern game?